In this video on ethics, we are going to look into utilitarianism. In utilitarianism, morality is based on intent, not on duty. Norms, laws, all your acts, they should be based on the result they give, and that result should be based on achieving happiness and should be good or useful, utility, for the majority in society. To give an example, if in society there are many beggars in the street, you can do one thing. You can try and help those beggars, but these beggars, they bother the majority of society. So people walking the street feel very unhappy seeing a beggar. In utilitarianism, you would take the beggars out of the street, bring them in a poorhouse, so the majority of the people wouldn't be confronted with seeing beggars every day anymore, which would increase their happiness. The fact that it might not be in the interest of the beggars, or that the beggars might not want to go to the poorhouse, in that case is not important because it will bring happiness to the majority, to the most. The most influential philosopher in utilitarianism is Bentham, who lived in England from 1748 till 1832. A kind of an eccentric guy. As you can see here, he had his body exposed and stuffed at the University College of London after his death. But he is mostly known because of his reform ideas for the laws of England, which, according to him, should be based on bringing about the greatest happiness. This brings about the question, what is happiness? Bentham was very straightforward about this. Happiness is pleasure and the absence of pain. As human beings, we seek pleasure and we avoid pain. So, according to Bentham, pleasure could be easily quantified into measurable units. And this brings us to the philosophic calculus. The idea of Bentham was that it was very simple. You just had to work out how much pleasure an action would bring, then subtract the pain it might cost, and then what's left over is the happiness value of the action. How this pleasure or happiness is created doesn't matter at all. For example, if you'd be in a situation where you'd be in a room with 4 people locked up without food, and you knew that you had to eat one of the 4 just to survive, and you'd pick the one who would leave the less people behind, that would be a morally good choice, because the survival of the other 3 would bring more happiness about than the loss of the one that was eaten. This, of course, brings about some questions. Is it this easily measurable? There are several objections to be made to the philosophic calculus. As the previous example already shows, it disregards individual rights. Can you sacrifice one for the pleasure of the greater group? That question also comes about in fighting criminality or terrorism, for example. Of course, fighting terrorism is a good thing. Fighting criminality is a good thing. No terrorism, no criminality in society will increase the happiness of everyone. But can you use torture of individuals to get information about criminal or terrorist groups? And not even talking about whether information based on torture is trustworthy. Wouldn't you just say anything to stop the pain? But can you disregard someone's individual right not to be tortured, just to reach a goal which is good for the majority. Second, Bentham does not value the way pleasure is produced. If it achieves happiness, it's good, and if achieving happiness is avoiding pain, being on morphine the whole day brings you happiness, even if you are wasted the whole day. And watching a bonfire in this ID would have the same worth as visiting the Taj Mahal. Well, watching a bonfire, of course, is great, but shouldn't seeing the Taj Mahal be measured in a different way? And thirdly, it is very much a cost-benefit analysis, which could lead to very strange equations. For example, you could come to the idea that smoking benefits society, as smokers first of all pay more tax by buying tobacco, which is good for the government. They have more money they can spend, and smokers die at a younger age of lung cancer. So they cost the government, the society, less money. These objections were things that other philosophers worked with, and a very important one in that regard is John Stuart Mill. But more about that in the next video.